Today we're going to be talking about the idea of adding a movement talent system into the game that could satisfy experienced, casual, and even possibly new players in Spellbreak. I'm making this video because I think there's a better option to what we got in Chapter 3. We know Chapter 3 was a disappointment for a lot of people in terms of movement, but it did bring with it dodge, which could have been a bright side to Chapter 3, especially since a lot of players have been asking for another movement option. However, there are 3 common complaints people had with dodge. One being that players wish they can move vertically up with it, the second being its low cooldown resulting in it being spammable, and third being the movement clamp which was imposed onto players after using it. Dodge also came with hard nerfs to movement in terms of mana consumption being increased and players still being more floaty now than before Chapter 2's gravity change. Basically, the addition to dodge was not a good enough trade-off for the vertical nerfs imposed. This also led people to wanting dodge to be a single charge blink, which would work similar to what you're seeing on the screen right now. However, ask yourself this, wouldn't that just be another rune? If people just chose Spring Step and Dash, which could have a 3-second cooldown with runic fluency, then we're back with the spamming issue of movement options when you give people a single charge blink movement option that also has a low cooldown. So enter movement talents. These would be micro movement options players can select before a match starts, similar to how normal talents work right now. These will include micro movement runes such as Dash, Shadow Step, and Spring Step. You can throw in dodge, double/triple jumps, and modified versions of blink too, such as a 1-charge blink that would be very similar to how Dash and Shadow Step works, and another version where you press it once and your character model flash steps 3 times in one direction, but can be cancelled. Canceling it will restart the cooldown and should have a longer cooldown than the other micro movement options. Now the question is, how would these micro movement options activate? These micro movement options could activate the same way as how dodge does now. There is another way which I will get into later on in the video. Of course, this means removing Dash, Shadow, and Spring Step as runes, which would leave people to select only larger movement runes like Flight, TP, and Featherfall. However, Spellbreak leaks did reveal in the past that there were other runes being developed, one specifically that worked similar to how Wrath's ability worked in Apex. This, with other possible runes that are in development, would help with the rune choice diversity. Thus, this idea will leave everyone having both micro and macro movement options. This will also help with the skill gap. I say this because on the release of Spellbreak, many people were only picking up Flight and Featherfall instead of micro movement runes, which were typically better options back then. The changes in Chapter 3 led to Flight, Featherfall, and Teleport being a bit more competitive choices in BR, but at the cost of overall movement feeling worse. The idea of having micro movement talents will also avoid the spamming issue that we see with dodge today. This is because we already have a blueprint of these micro movement options as runes, and they work just fine. Dodge would need to have its cooldown and movement clamps adjusted as well though. Same with a possible double and/or triple jump. It also wouldn't be such a bad thing for someone to have access to both a dash and a flight. One of the drawbacks to larger movement runes is that they typically leave you exposed and have longer cooldowns. Also, if someone is trying to constantly run away with a flight rune, then guess what? The person that they are running away from also has access to a large movement option to chase them down as well. Now let's talk about bringing back crouch. The reason we were giving as to why crouch was removed for dodge was because there wasn't enough room on controllers. I have to disagree with this idea because controller players could just press their jump button twice or move their joystick twice quickly in one direction to activate the movement talent option. This wouldn't be such a disadvantage either. If Fortnite controller players can build the Taj Mahal just as well as mouse and keyboard players, then just asking controller players to press one more input isn't such a tall task. Now with all that being said, we have to look at Levitation, which impacts the game drastically. I also believe that Levitation isn't needed to have mid-aerial combat either in Spellbreak. There are a number of ways to reach the skies through movement options such as runes, class sorceries, and the movement talents that I've been talking about. Spellbreak's alpha phase didn't have Levitation, and people loved it back then too. This movement talent system brings back some of Alpha's movement without it being completely broken or overpowered for people who don't have access to it. In my opinion, Proletariat hasn't and probably can't find a healthy compromise with Levitation that can satisfy casual/new players and the more sweaty players. So I suggest just reverting it back to how it was before Chapter 2's gravity changes, or removing it altogether. Yes, I know some locations on the map would need adjusting, but not as much as you would think, mainly because everybody would have a large movement rune. So if someone has a high ground on you, you can just TP behind them or possibly use the gate rate rune that I mentioned earlier in the video. Lastly, for this to work, I believe we will have to trim down the current talent list to avoid choice paralysis syndrome that new and casual players may have. We can easily eliminate 5 talents. We can get rid of the 3 1-point talents because those are just icing on the cake and not the foundation of most serious builds. Next, we can get rid of Spellslinger because it should be something that everyone can just do whenever they want without having to choose a talent. I met a lot of new players who had no idea what Spellslinger was or would ask me how did I have multiple runes in my inventory. It should just be something that people can do whenever they want. Fellowship is another talent that isn't needed either. It's almost impossible to get any real use out of it. The next talents I list are more debatable to keep or to remove. I'll list them on the screen with my reasoning. The reason why this idea is better than what we have now is because it's taking existing elements players already enjoy and that we already know is balance. It just gives players more access to those elements. I did make a video about some other movement options, but the more I think about it, the more those mechanics will probably make more sense in a completely different sci-fi game. At least I think so anyways. I still think sliding and wall running would be sick to have in Spellbreak if Levitation was removed, like how it was in Alpha. Thanks for watching the end of this video. Let me know how you guys feel about this idea, or do you guys have better ideas for movement option as well? Let me know down below. I might make a video about it and give you credit in the process. So till next time, stay safe and I'll see you later.